your dance. Though you are stiffer than a girder, they'll let you get away with murder. Razzle dazzle them, and you got a romance.
This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. The movie version of the musical Chicago is getting a lot of attention and a lot of award nominations. In a few minutes, we're going to take a look at a conversation we had with John Kander and Fred Ebb, who wrote the show. But first, we want to talk about if the movie's any good or not. So here to introduce our panel of experts, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
I got a headache from all that slamming camera work in Chicago, but I'm not an expert on movies, but I have brought a couple with me who can tell me why this movie, which I didn't think was so hot, is really good. Mike Kuchwara, who is the drama critic from the Associated Press, our old friend. Welcome back to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
And joining us for the first time, my friend and colleague from the New York Post, Jonathan Foreman, who is our film critic there. Welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
All right, Mike, you love the musical Chicago. And you love the movie too. How has the movie succeeded, and has it improved upon the musical?
Well, I have to say the first time I saw Chicago on stage, I loved it, and then saw it at least 10 or 12 times after that. And my main reaction after seeing the film was one of relief. They didn't screw it up, which was amazing, considering. I mean,
considering things like Annie and A Chorus Line, which have ruined wonderful movies that have ruined wonderful.
And there were low expectations because of who was cast as well.
That's true, and also the fact that this movie was made with a lot of baggage. First, you have the ghost of Bob Fosse hovering all over it. You have all the, the parade of names of famous ladies that were supposed to be in it, from Liza Minnelli to Goldie Hawn to Madonna, Barbara Streisand. Everyone was supposed to do it. It was the poor man's Evita, I guess. And and when they picked the two ladies that they eventually ended up with, I was a little apprehensive.
Yeah, Catherine Zeta-Jones and
Renee
Zellweger.
Who, certainly, Catherine had a career, I guess, as a child in London. Wasn't she?
Yes.
She was a stage actress. But Renee certainly, I didn't know she was a song and dance lady.
No, she wasn't. She learned to dance for the show.
I'm sorry?
So no, and also the director, too. I think Rob Marshall, who really is coming in with a lot of pressure on him. Everybody wanted Fosse, but, Fosse's gone. So why regurgitate what he had done? And I have to give him credit for trying something new.
Now, Jonathan, I want to ask you, one of my problems with the movie, though, and I guess maybe just I'm of a different generation, but this constant camera banging, slamming, Moulin Rouge-like way of doing things. Is that just how movies are now made?
Well, too often, yes. It wasn't as bad as Moulin Rouge, though. In the sense that at least you could see some dancing in this.
Yes, nowhere near as hyperactive.
Yeah, Moulin Rouge, you could never see anyone dancing, and everyone was cut off at the knees, and you never, at the end of that, you didn't know if Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor could actually tango. Because you just saw the tops of their heads and the camera whirling round and round. Here, it wasn't that hyperactive, but quite often you did find he did little MTV tricks. He speeded up the camera, which makes you wonder, oh, maybe they're not fast enough, maybe they can't keep up with the music. And there are some annoying things, and you never get the one. It's one of the things I missed from the show, which is you never get to see the whole chorus dancing at the same time. You never really get to get that whole spectacle, and I did miss that. I also missed, I think, it's not as sexy as the show. It's not nearly as sexy, and the choreography isn't nearly as sort of erotic as that sort of wonderful Fosse stuff that's in the show.
Did you find sexiness in the movie?
I did, actually. I thought, with all the close-ups and the fast cutting back and forth, I liked the frenetic pace of it. It gives a feel of Chicago, jazzy, 1920s.
That's true.
And there was a rhythm to the movie that you didn't get on stage. It was sort of like a machine gun, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. And, it is a movie. If you want the stage version, go to the Schubert or the Ambassador, where, that moves, I guess, the end of the month.
It doesn't have the decadent quality, and it doesn't have the homoeroticism of the stage version. They've sort of taken that out. Well, with the Mama Morton.
It doesn't have the guys in the mesh shirts.
Yes, the guys
it doesn't
in the
have the
mesh
bare chests
shirts.
and
it doesn't have. Mama Morton is no longer an obvious lesbian as she
still
is.
Fairly heavily implied, I thought.
Well, but not the way it is in the show.
No, not the way it is.
We may have to wait for the DVD version.
And that was
Queen at the cut song.
And that was Queen Latifah.
Who I loved. I thought she was the best person. I thought she was just extraordinary. I thought she was great.
She was the one I liked the least. It's interesting. I thought she she downplayed it. Although I thought, the stage version, to put those people, I mean, I love Bebe Neuwirth and I love Anne Reinking, but
I
to
wish
put
they were
them
there.
in the movie, I don't know, would they have been larger than life? Look at Ethel Merman's movie career. I mean, she was a little too much.
But
yeah.
Bebe Neuwirth's great on screen, though. And I think
Oh,
Yes,
Bebe Neuwirth's
Bebe
wonderful.
Neuwirth's gorgeous. I want to bring up a point that Michael raised before. I found in the movie also that all those images coming at me, 60 not 60 frames per second, 60 images per second, it was too cluttered for me. But then I thought, well, this is not my generation. Do movies have to have that overstimulating
frenetic pace, yeah.
nowadays to work?
I don't think they do have to. There are some quite slow movies that have done, quite well. Although audiences don't seem to like them very much.
The slow
No,
movies.
Road
Slow
to
movies.
Perdition or
This is a
Solaris.
Chicago for 2003.
Yes.
If it had been made 20 years ago, it would have been completely different. If it was made, 2013, who knows what it would look like. But this is very much, even though it's set in the 20s, it's very much...
Made in 2013, it would be 3 minutes.
on the other hand, it does do things. It fills in gaps that I went to see the show again after I saw the movie, and I suddenly realised, gosh, the plot and stuff never really made any sense. And it's also it's this thin a show, and the movie, these are actual characters. You get to look at people's faces, and they become more like human beings, especially the Zellweger character, and that. In some ways, it's more satisfying.
Well, apparently that screenplay, went through many rewrites. I mean, Larry Gelbart was on it at one.
Wendy Wasserstein.
Wendy Wasserstein was on it. It had many. And who was the final screen credit?
Bill Condon?
Bill Condon, yeah.
Yes.
But also the revival was the scaled-down version
Yes.
of the 1975
And I think that's what
musical.
people are comparing the movie
Yes.
to, not the original. Those of us who are old enough to have seen
Right.
the original, which dates us a lot. I mean, there was a lot more set. The orchestra was above the stage. I mean, the version that most people think of when they think of Chicago is the
1996.
Encores.
It's the minimal
is the
version.
version that was done originally at Encore.
I actually would disagree with you about. I thought the movie, the Chicago, the entity, was weakened by filling in too much of the plot. I felt that the characters.
It adds a whole kind of.
Yeah, but the story just wasn't that interesting to me. And what I miss, though, that the musical has, that is, I think, utterly lacking in the movie, is the sense of what Chicago's really about, which is show business.
No,
that it's all razzle-dazzle, it's all showbiz, folks, it's all phony.
No,
and that
changed
Bob
it.
Fosse show business is not in the movie.
No, I missed the Fosse choreography, but I thought it improves on something in Chicago, which is, original Chicago is a sort of very cynical late 60s thing about, how institutions like, the courts are all bull, whereas this isn't about that. It's about spectacle and our obsession with spectacle and obsession with celebrity.
Yes.
So it's updated and it works. I mean, that sort of 60s, early 70s cynicism just feels so heavy-handed today, and I thought it was good that it updated that, and it gave it a little bit of social context when you see Renee Zellweger's sort of the crummy little apartment, that sort of cold water flat that she shares with her husband. I mean, it sort of gives it enough context to make you care a little. It doesn't make it, deep story or anything of the sort.
Do you think that this movie, if it is successful at the box office, will spur more musical movies, which have not been done for a long, long time?
No, I don't
Why
think
not?
so. I mean, what are they going to make in Rent? I don't know.
Well, they've been trying to.
Yeah. What will that look like on stage?
I hope they make Dance of the Vampires into a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing they did do is it's sort of, well, it's the second one in a year. It's quite interesting. There's been two, there was Moulin Rouge last year, there's now this. And everyone's saying, it was reinvented the musical. And I would say it is probably the best movie musical since Cabaret, but is that saying very much? I mean, there haven't been any good movie musicals.
And
since
even Cabaret was kind of a cheat in a way that, because the characters just didn't burst into all the songs. I mean, Fosse did have a concept. They only sang in the Cabaret. People complaining about the songs cut from Chicago. I don't remember them complaining about all the songs that were cut from Cabaret that the old folks got. I mean, those songs all went by the board. So. No,
it was clever the way they avoided people having to burst into song, I think.
Yes,
but I do
yes.
miss, I mean, it's still not classic musical. I mean, it's certainly not Singing in the Rain. I mean, it's sort of,
No.
and you don't get anything
No.
like that.
And I miss the heavy-handed late 60s, early 70s cynicism because
you do.
I'm heavy-handed and cynical, and that's just the way it is.
But that will always be with us, Michael. You know you're the bad boy of Broadway. So if you single-handedly, you'll lift it up or lower it down.
We're going to jump to our interview with John Kander and Fredette, but first let's thank Mike Kuchwara from the Associated Press and Jonathan Foreman from the New York Post.
So we take you now to 1996 when the musical revival was just about to open, and we start with John John Kander talking about Fred Ebb's perspective on the musical.
Did you always know that Chicago was a great show? It was only a matter of
Well,
time
this has
before
al-
the
this has
world
always
caught
been-
up to
This
it.
has always been Fred's favorite musical.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have called it a great show. I don't do that. But I mean,
Why is it your favorite show?
because there weren't any ballads in it. I loved that it was a show that was just up all the way. It defied you to fall asleep. It was just the most up and joyous show I think we'd ever written. And because of that, there was no need to stop and do anything lachrymose or sentimental.
Joyous is a strange word to use, though, because, I mean, it's a cynical, hard-edged show.
Yeah, but there's joy in there.
Yeah.
Because everything's either funny or pointed and I think basically what I always liked about it is I always believed in it. I believed in what it had to say. And since history has borne me out, there's a certain amount of satisfaction you get in watching it today and knowing that an O.J. Simpson has happened, the Menendez brothers have happened.
It's more apt than ever.
What's his name? Buttafuoco has happened.
I mean, Johnny Cochran could be singing Razzle Dazzle on, on the Larry King Show. Now,
The curious thing is that it got so much, the show itself got so much better reviews this time than it had originally. Sometimes by the same critics.
It was ahead of its time, kind of.
And
back
I
then,
think
wasn't
that's because they were seeing it in this pure form.
it? And the erotic nature of the dances back in the 70s, people were quite shocked, weren't they?
And we had another really, this is sort of an intramural thing, but we opened very close to a chorus line, which was, as far as critically, it was the second coming, and it was a show I happened to love too.
Yeah.
But they wiped us out.
now you said
Everybody talked about a chorus line.
Yeah.
You said that it was your favorite. You said it was Fred's favorite show.
Yeah.
But is it your favorite show of all the ones you've done, or do you have any?
I love it, but it's not my favorite show.
Which is your favorite?
The Rink.
The Rink, the Liza Minnelli, Cheetah Rivera show that didn't make it on Broadway, right?
Right.
No, it didn't.
And why that?
Because it's got so many ballads.
Now wait a minute, you hate
You
ballads.
like the
love
lachrymals,
Wait a minute, you hate ballads. You love ballads. How do you guys work together?
Well, why do you think we've been together for 30 years?
Slug it out every time you come.
No,
over?
we don't know. We just do what we think is right. And that show, it really didn't call for anything like that. Johnny loves to write them, and I find them difficult.
Now, wait, is this the dark side of Kander and Ebb on this side, and the light side of Kander and Ebb, the lighter?
Oh, he's dark. But I mean, in this show, I co-wrote it with Bob Fosse. I'm sorry, which not bespeaks a certain darkness right there. Bobby was dark.
Can you tell us the germ of the show, the seed for the show, how you got it together, why you wrote it?
Well, actually, Fred knows a bit more about that than I do, but I know that Bobby and Gwen Verdon had been trying to get the rights to this for a long time, hadn't they?
And do it.
And Maureen Watkins, who wrote the play Chicago, had turned against her former sinful life and I think became a religious.
Yeah, I think she was sort of a nun or something.
Reborn Christian.
Anyway, she would.
Oh, well. It's the same.
They couldn't get the rights until I think she finally passed away.
And they also didn't have a concept. And when they spoke to me about it, they asked if I could come up with something that was theatrically viable. It didn't seem offhand to be the kind of material that would lend itself to music. And so that whole business of making it a vaudeville was what I brought to them, to submit to them, and which they bought, and that's how come I became a collaborator on the book.
So you brought John into the project? Well, you guys have been writing together, but
Yeah, well, I
who
guess
really-
I did in a way. I mean, since I'd written the book, and clearly the words and music were, you know, there was no question who'd write that.
Right. Now, how do you guys? I'm always interested to know how great songs are written, and there are a couple of terrific songs in Chicago. Do you remember where you were and why you wrote All That Jazz? One of your biggest
I'm
hit
sure we
songs.
were in a little room in Fred's apartment where I walk to work, and he stays home, and we usually work there improvising together.
And you work from the libretto. I mean, is the show mapped out? How do you when you sit down to work? How do you do
We
it?
work from a moment that we know is going to be there, usually a dramatic moment, or in the case of Chicago, I guess in the case of every show we've written, that we write first moment first, which in a funny way tells you something about
What
the style.
you're in for.
And All That Jazz are the opening number, so that
Yes.
would have been
Yeah.
the song that you wrote first. Huh?
The title came from, I was doing research in the Time Life series of the decades, and I got the 20 to 30s decade book. And one of the chapter headings is I shouldn't be telling you, but was All That Jazz. And I thought, well, that's a neat title.
Some editor at Time Life is to thank
It's
for this.
probably cursing
Wants
me
to
out.
share in the royalties of this hit production of Chicago.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, all right.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, when Bobby was going to do the musical film, he wanted that title and called me and asked if he could use it. And I said, my goodness, it's not mine. I mean, I told him the truth. I'd always told that. I mean, I didn't want any undue credit. I said, I got it from Time Life. He said, well, I don't have to be asking you anything, man. And I said, no, you don't. It's
You can take
there
it.
it is. It's out there.
Now, it was not the original production, though, was not easy to put together. Fosse had had a heart attack, was going through a bout of depression. How difficult was it to work with him back
The
then?
actual writing of it was a joy. Before we went into rehearsal, we really had a good time.
After all, that heart attack was the third day we were in rehearsal.
Right, right.
But the show had been
But the
created,
show had been written,
Right.
so.
and that was really fun.
Really? I mean, you just had a good time with
Well, Bobby
banging out
was
the melodies on the
wonderful.
piano?
He was
and-
just wonderful, and he was not depressed.
And he was encouraging
and he
open.
loved what we were doing, and
But then, boom, he has a heart attack, comes back, and according to Martin Gottfried's book, he's a changed man in some ways, and is darker and tougher.
I think that's true. I think it came out of it with a certain cynicism and darkness that hadn't been there before.
There's
Although
also-
I think my suspicion is, that Bobby was always a little dark and a little cynical and a little.
But I've also been told that very often after that particular operation, a whole kind of depression sets in with people.
Was he tough on you guys when he came back, when the show was
Well,
in
it was
rehearsal?
tough on me a little. I don't think it was as tough on John as it was on me.
Oh, he let you,
But
gave you a free ride, and he was...
well, whatever problem we had seemed rooted in the book in Philadelphia, and so I was responsible for that. I'm sorry, I got a cold.
That's all right.
So if there was trouble or things of that nature, generally fell to me to handle Bobby.
Would he get angry or?
No, he would get sarcastic and
Cutting.
he's a rough customer. But what sustained me was his brilliance, and I've always thought that you forgive people like that anything when they're that good. It's the ones that aren't any good who have the manners of that Bobby had that you get resentful.
Right.
But you couldn't really resent Bobby because he was just so brilliant.
Now, you guys have worked on a lot of shows together. There's often a rough and tumble when a show is being put together, problems with the director. You guys have managed to stay together. How have you done it? I mean, do you look out for each other, or have there anyone tried to put a wedge between the two of you to divide you in any way? I mean, I know how difficult the theater can be and how
I think
nasty.
one of the things that's sustained us is that the actual act of writing for the two of us is always a joy. And there's an anecdote, as a matter of fact, from Chicago, which has always illustrated that to me. Everything, writing is wonderful. It's a wonderfully good time. And everything after that is really, really hard. And we were out of town and having a very bad time over the last song in the show. It's a complicated story.
How to end the show, in fact.
But after a lot of bad moments, which didn't involve us so much, as a matter of fact, Bobby turned to us and almost apologetically said, would you mind going back and trying to write another musical moment for this? And we looked at our shoes as if we were granting some terrible favor. And we said, all right. And we walked out of the door of the hotel and
And yelled, whoopee!
Back to what we know and love.
little did he know that he'd given us the best present he could. We skipped down the hall and wrote a song called Nowadays and took the rest of the day off.
That's good, isn't it grand? Isn't swell. Isn't it fun, isn't it? But nothing stays. In 50 years or so, it's gonna change, you know. But oh, it's heaven nowadays.
Now, a collaboration is like a marriage, and in a marriage there is tension and there are fights. Do you guys ever fight? Do you ever fight over a song, over a lyric?
No.
Do you ever tell them, hey, I don't like your melody, hey, I don't like your lyric?
Sure.
How
Yeah,
is it?
All the
we
time.
don't fight.
But there's no tension there? I mean, you're just...
No.
No, and there never has been from the very beginning. We found this way of working together. We were really sort of fell into it. It's not, I mean...
I think because we're each other's fan. See, I think John is just a terrific musician and a wonderful composer.
And the feeling is...
And if I were to say to him, I don't like something, he would know where what place that came from. And it's not a harmful place or a hurtful place or a degrading place. It's my love for his work says to me, I am allowed to say this to you.
If one of us feels...
I'm not jeopardy. I don't put anything in jeopardy.
I take him very seriously. I have enormous respect for him, and he for me. So that if one of us feels passion about something, the other one usually listens.
Yeah.
So it's somehow or other.
We're always right too. I mean, even if we're wrong, we're right. I mean, if he said something was terrible, I would just take that to be the truth.
We also tear up really fast. I mean, we write fast, and we.
And well, I've heard that you guys write a lot more songs than you need for a show. You write, if you
I
need
think
12
most-
songs, you write 20 or something
I
like
think
that.
most people who write for shows do that.
And do you write every day? Are you that disciplined? You guys meet the same time every day? And
Yes,
when we're
generally,
working-
when we're working on a show, we do.
I go over to his house about 10 o'clock.
And how does it happen? Do you say you improvise? You just throw out ideas and hit a
Well,
little
generally,
piano?
the way it would start would I'd hopefully have an idea for a song, and I would present that idea to Johnny when he came over, and see what it generated in him creatively, and then he could improvise melodically what it might sound like, and building on that improvisation, I improvise lyric.
We can sort of, it goes sort of like this together. It happens at the same time.
And so we go back and forth, and by the end of it all, there's a song there. But I would never write a completed lyric with because I would confine him to a form, which is not fair to do. I'd probably write an AABA, which is the most common form of song, because that's how I would think. And yet, if I gave him the freedom of just the title, just the idea, who knows what he might sit down and come up with.
Or sometimes we'll just start from a vamp.
You just
banging
away.
He's the king of vamps.
Well, not really, but I think all that jazz really began. I think we had a title.
Well, look at New York, New York. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the song is the vamp.
What a vamp.
Yeah, that's true. Fred Ebb, John Kander, thank you for joining us on Theater
Thank you
Talk.
for having me.
Slick your hair and wear your buckle shoes. And all that jazz, I hear that Father Dip is gonna blow the blues. And all that jazz, hold on, hun, we're gonna bunny hug. I bought some aspirin down at United Drug. In case you shake a heart, I want a brand new start to do that.
Let's go, baby.
So go see the movie. It's going to win a lot of Oscars. But right now, we're going to close with Dancing Like You Will Not See in That Movie. Here's Phoebe Newworth and Anne Reinking from the Broadway version of Chicago doing the Hot Honey Rag. Good night. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Friedrich Loewe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, and public funds from the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
Playbill Online is the official website of Theater Talk and the home of the Playbill Club, providing information and opportunities for theater lovers. We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.